José Mourinho has started his Real Madrid reign with a 2-1 win over Espanyol, and this match gave us our first real look at his tactical principles, how he wants this Real Madrid side to play, and how he plans to use Mbappé and Vinicius. Mourinho lined his side up in a 4-2-3-1, while Manolo Gonzalez set Espanyol up in a 4-4-2. Before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment with your thoughts on the match. Let's start with Espanyol on the ball. When Espanyol had the ball, their back four would restructure into a back three, with one fullback given license to push high and wide. That role belonged mainly to right back Omar El Hilali. His advanced positioning created width down the right and served two purposes, giving Espanyol a wide outlet in build-up and dragging Real Madrid's press out wide to open space through the middle. Meanwhile, the two wide midfielders, Alex Calatrava and Tiras Dolan, pushed higher up the pitch, pinning Real Madrid's fullbacks and stopping them from stepping out onto El Hilali. This turned Espanyol's shape from a 4-4-2 on paper into something closer to a 3-3-4 in possession. In this frame, you can see Clemens Riedel, Unai Núñez, and Roger Hinojo forming the back three, with El Hilali, Urco Gonzalez, and Edu Exposito making up the midfield three in build-up. To counter this, Real Madrid pressed man-to-man and aggressively. When the press worked, they won the ball high up the pitch and launched quick counterattacks. But when Espanyol broke through it, Real dropped into a mid-block 4-4-2, with Jude Bellingham and Arda Güler tucking into midfield to form a four alongside Valverde and Bernardo Silva. Now flip it around and look at Espanyol without the ball, because that back three build-up wasn't the only shapeshift in this game. On the team sheet, Espanyol lined up in a 4-4-2. Out of possession, though, that shape moved into something closer to a 4-2-4. This wasn't about pressing Real Madrid high or hunting the ball aggressively. It was about denial. Espanyol's front four were told to hold their spacing and cut off the passing lanes into Real's Valverde-Bernardo Silva pivot, refusing to let Madrid play through the middle at any cost. That discipline was the whole plan. As long as the front four kept their shape tight, Real had nowhere central to go and were squeezed out toward the touchlines instead. And down Real's most dangerous side, the left, Espanyol's right back, Omar El Hilali, the same player pushing forward in build-up, was tasked with matching Vinicius physically, doing everything he could to stop him turning and running in behind. The trade-off was real, though. The moment Real found a way to break into the pockets between that front four, Espanyol's structure suddenly looked exposed. And that's exactly the weakness Mourinho's build-up plan was designed to exploit. In deep build-up, Real set up as a 3-2-4-1, a back three of Dian Huijsen and Ibrahima Konate, flanking an inverted Alvaro Carreras, a double pivot of Valverde and Bernardo Silva screening in front of them, four players spread across the advanced line, and Mbappé occupying the point. With Carreras tucked infield, Denzel Dumfries was freed to push high and wide on the right, essentially playing as a wingback. That gave Güler license to drift inside off the right and add another central passing option, while on the left, Vinicius and Mbappé rotated to share their preferred channel without Dumfries' width getting in the way. That back three didn't stay fixed, though. As Real advanced into more dangerous areas, Carreras kept going, pushing beyond his inverted center-back role and into central midfield. That movement freed up whichever pivot player wasn't needed to hold, Silva or Valverde, to step higher and join the attack. The trade-off was a back line reduced to just Konate and Huijsen once Real were camped in the final third. A genuine back two doing the covering while the rest of the team committed numbers forward. Mbappé in particular was a constant headache for that Espanyol backline to track. Rather than holding the central striker's line, he was always on the move, dropping into the half space to link with Bellingham, swapping wide with Vinicius so the two of them were never occupying the same channel at once, or coming short to drag a center-back out of the defensive line entirely. That rotation put Espanyol's markers in an impossible spot. Follow him out of position and break the zonal discipline that was the whole point of their shape, or pass him off and risk losing track of him altogether. Even when the end product wasn't always there, the movement alone was enough to open cracks in an otherwise well-drilled structure. As one of Real's two constants at the back, regardless of how far forward Carreras pushed, Huijsen was the player making it all work. His job as the ball-playing center back was to break Espanyol's front four screen with progressive passes. Get Real on the ball in exactly the areas Espanyol were working hardest to protect. His most frequent target was Bellingham, who was constantly working the space between Espanyol's lines. Level at the break, Mourinho changed his approach. If the center couldn't be broken down consistently, the answer was to overload the flanks instead. And two substitutes, Marc Cucurella and Diomande, came on to help do exactly that. With Espanyol's front four no longer pressing with much intensity, Mourinho accepted more risk in build-up, sometimes dropping Bernardo Silva into a deeper double pivot, sometimes using a dedicated back two, all in service of freeing up both fullbacks. Down the left, Cucurella and Vinicius were coached to never occupy the same vertical channel. When Cucurella pushed wide, Vinicius tucked inside toward goal. When Cucurella came narrow, Vinicius held the width. Either way, Espanyol's right back was now facing two attackers instead of one, and could no longer afford to aggressively follow a single dropping runner. A big reason Vinicius's touches and dribbles both increased sharply after the break. Down the right, with Güler continuing to drift infield, Diomande held the width, and Dumfries looked to underlap in behind him. Diomande's biggest impact wasn't always visible on the ball. Espanyol repeatedly had to send a second defender to double up on him, which pulled their defensive line apart and opened space between the backline and midfield that Real could exploit elsewhere. In the end, the scoreline flattered Real Madrid more than the performance did. For long stretches, Manolo Gonzalez's 4-2-4 denial shape did exactly what it was built to do. It kept Real out of the middle of the pitch, forced Mourinho's side into low-value wide possession, and had Espanyol within a set piece and a moment of individual quality of taking something off Mourinho on his first day in charge. What eventually broke Espanyol down wasn't really a flaw in their structure. It was Real simply having more answers. Mourinho's halftime switch, bringing on Cucurella and Diomande specifically to overload both flanks, was the adjustment that mattered most. It's what turned a game Real were struggling to unlock centrally into one where Espanyol's backline was stretched and doubled up out wide. And it's no coincidence the eventual winner came from one of those fresh legs off the bench, in Carlos Espí, 10 minutes after replacing Bellingham. That's arguably the biggest early takeaway from this Real Madrid side. Less about a fixed system, more about pragmatism. Sit patient, deny centrally, force the opponent to solve the game your way, then react to whatever they throw at you. Combined with a match-winning impact off the bench, that's a decent early indicator of how Mourinho wants his Real Madrid to win football matches. For Gonzalez and Espanyol, there's plenty to build on here. The discipline of that front four, and the willingness to match Vinicius physically rather than give him a run-up, gave a genuinely top-class side a real problem for 90 minutes. The lesson for them isn't really about the shape itself. It's about game management once Real turned to fresh legs and started doubling up out wide. That's the moment the game slipped away, and it's the kind of in-game adjustment that's fixable.